And I'm not sure how many of you have checked to see if your thermometer is calibrated. Our temperatures need to be a good idea. A glass of ice water ready, just to make sure that your thermometer is reading the right temperature.
Okay.
Well, the students continue to come in. We're still missing a few people, so we'll wait a bit.
What's
Just put on gallery for a minute.
what's it supposed to be, Jason? Jay.
Oh, so ice water, let the ice sit in the water for a little bit. And then once everything is good and, cold, thermometer to be, right at 32 degrees. So,
Ice in it.
Yeah.
water 32 degrees. So that's, hi. So that's a good way just to make sure that your temperature is right. The other is, of course, in boiling water and see if it's at 212. But that always involves carefully holding it with the tongs and only dropping it in the water twice and trying to fish it out and everything. And if it's a digital thermometer, it's better just to do the ice water and make sure it's at 32.
And since we've got lots of snow, we can.
Yeah, I actually don't have any here in the kitchen. So just to double check mine, I did go out and just scoop up some snow and added some water, threw it in the freezer.
Yep.
Well, it's right at 1 o'clock. We still have students coming in, but I'm going to go ahead and get started with my little 5 minutes of fame before I turn this over to Jay. My name is Terry Van Orman. I'm the Executive Director of Folklore Village. And although we have many people here who know and love Folklore Village, we also have a few people here who probably have never been to Folklore Village. So I'd like to welcome you particularly and just invite you to check out our programming. In normal years, if we ever have those again, we do lots of in-person, on-the-ground programming from dance events to concerts to we do school programs for children. We do free senior concerts. We do all kinds of things, including, and this will be of interest to some of you, entire weekends where we gather together. We learn about music and dance and singing and craft, and all weekend long, Jay Miller cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's fabulous. So if you know Jay, but you don't know Folklore Village, you may just want to check us out. And I'm going to just put our website here in the chat. I know most of you have been on our website just because you had to in order to enroll. So at any rate, the only other thing that I need to tell you besides a welcome from Folklore Village is it's pretty much standard etiquette on Zoom is to keep yourself muted while Jay will be speaking. The exception to that will be anyone who feels they have an immediate question that needs to be answered. Jay has invited you to go ahead and blurt that out, and so that he can answer your question before he gets too far past, the point of being able to help you at that stage. And or the other option is to type something in the chat, and I will bring it to his attention. But perhaps the most effective thing is just go, "Hey Jay," so unmute yourself and say, "Hey Jay, what do you mean by that?" And he'll be glad to answer you. So, but otherwise, please leave yourself muted. We get a lot of uncomfortable sounds coming from your background that really can, cause havoc with what Jay's going to produce. I am going to spotlight Jay right now for everybody. And so, yeah, I think we're ready to turn it over to the master of chocolate, Jay Miller. Thanks.
All right, well, welcome to my RedBarn Catering kitchen. Full disclosure, I am not a chocolatier, but I am pretty good at chocolate, so we're definitely going to make some really good treats today. I do have another webcam set up right here in front of me. It isn't an ideal place, but it's a great spot for me to be able to switch camera views, and you'll be able to see what's going down here, because you're really going to want to, most of what we're going to be doing is going to be down here. I'm gesturing at the tables, just so you know, just as far as the decorating and everything. One thing that is going to be very important today is making sure that your temperatures are right, which is why I wanted to make sure that people got a digital thermometer. It's just going to be much more specific as far as just checking to make sure that everything is perfect. As I was saying, before the class started, is that you want to make sure it's calibrated properly. You do that by just taking some ice water, making sure that the ice and water are the same temperature, let it sit for just a couple of minutes, and then just seeing if your thermometer reads 32 degrees. If it's off just, by a degree or two, that's not really a big deal. You just want to kind of remember that if it is, like for some reason, say it's 5 degrees high, you can just, as you're doing your temperatures, just add that to it, and then you'll make sure that you're good. I have done this before where I didn't check my thermometer. I got the chocolate too warm when I was tempering it, and it bloomed. It was still delicious, and it still worked out fine. It just didn't have that perfect shine and snap to it. It still had a nice shell, but when chocolate blooms, it gets kind of this it's a white coating around it, basically. So chocolate is an emulsification, and you have the cocoa and the cocoa butter, and the cocoa butter will sort of pull out of a bit. As an example, I've got this chocolate bar here, and if you've ever seen chocolate that kind of has this white powder on the outside of it, this is my bittersweet. This is fine for using for the ganache because we are going to re-emulsify it, so that's fine. But if you're going to be using the chocolate, well, you don't want to use chocolate that has bloomed for tempering, because it's just not going to do what you want it to do. It will technically work, it just won't be perfect. So, what we are going to be doing today is, first we are going to make a ganache. Now, a standard ganache is 2-to-1 chocolate to cream. That's just your basic ganache. You can add butter to it for a better mouthfeel, and you have to adjust the ratios there some, and you can also add alcohol to it for better flavor. For this, I've actually done both, so we're adding both the butter and the alcohol, which is some slightly complicated chocolate math, I like to call it. And so this recipe is done for you to work that way. If you wanted to just do a basic cream and chocolate, then you can just do 2-to-1, and that's fine. Add a little butter, it's 10% the cream, that works just fine. So we are going to make our ganache. We are going to split that ganache into 2 different vessels. One, we are going to put it into a pan so it can chill, so we can scoop it for our truffles, and the other we're going to put into a bag so we can pipe it into our tartlet shells. The tartlet shells are already made or bought by you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video that I put together for you. Out of curiosity, I checked. I said some variation of 40 times in the first 5 minutes, but only 80 times total. So that lets you know how I was feeling about that first 5 minutes. But we got there, so I hope you enjoyed that. Then, once we've got our truffles scooped from, our ganache scooped from that firmer ganache, we're gonna hand roll those into some nice, perfect little round balls. Perfect. and we will then be tempering chocolate. We will dip our truffle balls into that tempered chocolate. We'll do them about 2 at a time and then top them right away, since if we have tempered it perfectly, it will set within about 2 to 3 minutes. So you don't want to do all of them at once, otherwise by the time you're done, they're going to be perfect and shiny, but you won't be able to put a coating on them. With the chocolate that is left in the bowl from tempering, we're then going to put that into a piping bag, and then we're going to have fun making some chocolate shapes that I give you some templates for to do that with. So without further ado, you've got your thermometers ready to go. You've got everything all laid out. For starters, let's get our chocolates. This is the mixture of semi-sweet and bittersweet chocolate. You can just use semi-sweet for this, but I like to use the semi-sweet and the bittersweet. It gives it a more richer, fuller, chocolatey flavor. So we're going to actually put this in a very low oven, around 170. My oven has a hard time getting there that low, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. I may have to pull mine out a little quicker, but we're just going to start warming this up and warming our cream at the same time. So first, let's put our chocolate into our warm oven at 170 for about 7 minutes. My oven is actually at 170 right now, so that's a win so far. We're doing good. Now, we've got our heavy cream, and we just want to get this to a rapid simmer. We don't want to boil it because that's going to kind of mess with the water to fat ratio. So we just want to get it to a rapid simmer. It's not a whole lot, so it should get there pretty quickly. If you've got a lid or another pot or something handy, so if it gets to that temp, you can quick just cap that off. See what webcam I want to go to is that one. That one looks right. All right, so I've got my cream right there. And that is just going to get nice and simmery. And if you've got your butter, I'm assuming your butter is room temperature. If it's not room temperature,
That's not good.
got it cut up. I've got mine just in a little cup there. On my screen, that's all washed out, but it's cut up, quartered up butter in a cup. As we're moving along, I am going to try not to go too fast. There may be a little dead space where I'm just going to be talking at you. We can have a conversation, however that works. But it is, I've done this before where all the temperatures, my cream is already simmering, so I am just going to cap that. There's been times where I'm just waiting for the temperatures to get right, and there's other times where it's just, bam, the temperatures are right, and I just got to keep rolling. So I'm going to try to keep things going nice and slow. So there's a lot of us here. We're all going to be working with slightly different temperatures that we want to get pretty precise. So again, I'm going to take it slow so we don't just get screwed up. When we get to tempering chocolate, how that works is, the classic way is for dark chocolate, you start off at whatever room temperature, you get it up to around 118. You got to drop the temperature slowly down to 82, and then back up to around 85, 89 for working with. They do that in the classic way. It's called big marbling. They marble it, but that means they have a big marble slab. If you've ever seen the chocolatiers, it's the big mass of chocolate, and they're just scooping it up. They're using the thermal mass of the marble to cool it down. We're going to be doing what's called the seeding method. So what gives chocolate that perfect shine and snap is these perfect tiny little crystals that multiply throughout the chocolate. So already tempered chocolate, like these Calais that I had you get, that's already perfectly tempered chocolate. So what we're going to do is we're going to melt the chocolate, get it to that perfect temperature, then we're going to seed it with that already tempered chocolate, and that is going to both bring our temperature down, introduce those perfect chocolate sugar crystals, and those are then just going to multiply and make everything perfect. If you get too hot, you get above 118, you get above 120, 125, your chocolate may not temper perfectly. I've done it. It didn't look perfect, but it was still really good. It was still amazing chocolate, and we had no problem eating it. I may not want to serve it to somebody. You may do it and kind of kick yourself. But having a perfectly calibrated thermometer, if that does happen, you'll know. And you'll know that next time you do it, that you just need to adjust, your time. You got to watch a little closer. Working with this small-ish amount of chocolate, the temperature can change very rapidly. So that's just something that you want to be aware of. As I'm doing it, I'll be talking a lot about, just like when to take it off, when to keep an eye on it. So I'll just say, I've done it before where things didn't go perfectly. Not with the ganache. Ganache is easy. This is going to go really well. The only thing that can be a little finicky is tempering of the chocolate. If it doesn't go perfect for you, it'll still be delicious. And you'll be able to see exactly what went wrong with your perfectly calibrated thermometer. Well, it's about 5 minutes of me yammering on. Got about 2 minutes of the chocolate still in the oven. The cream is ready to go. So what's going to happen here is we're going to take the chocolate out of the oven. We are just going to pour our cream over it and just let it sit for a couple of minutes. And that's the heat of the cream is just going to distribute through the rest of the chocolate, and that should fully melt everything. At that point, we're just going to mix it, kind of start in the middle with our spatula, and we're just going to keep mixing it until it's all incorporated. At that point, we do need to wait until it gets to 92 degrees before we add our butter, vanilla, and alcohol. If you add the butter too soon, the butter's going to break, it's going to split, and you're going to get these funky streaks that we don't want. If you add the alcohol too soon, it's going to burn off, because alcohol is, it's a volatile liquid, and if it gets too warm, you're just going to burn off the alcohol. And we don't want to do that. I'm going to be adding the full, you can do 10 to 20% the total volume of the ganache when adding alcohol. I'm going to go the full 20, just because I want to be able to taste it just a little more. I am, there's a lot of wiggle room in what you can use. I'm using Remy Martin cognac. I've used a lot of different booze, because, I love cooking with booze. A lot of you know that. This is what I had on the shelf, so this is what I'm using. I know some of you did ask, hey, I've got this. Can I use this? Or, it's alcohol. If you like it, it's going to be good. If it's got a really strong flavor, somebody asked about amaretto, maybe don't use so much, otherwise it'll just be a really strong cherry flavor, unless you want a really strong cherry flavor. I like some of those, the alcohol to be more of a much more background flavor, so it's not like you bite it and you're like, ooh, that you don't want it to be strong. I still give them to my kids, because there's only, like there's, in all of this chocolate, there's, a healthy shot, I'd say. So there's not so much that's going to mess anybody up. It's just going to be nice and tasty. That was 7 minutes. Let's get our chocolate up. We can see here, nice and melty. Let's look down at the table. So now all we have to do is pour our cream right over it, and it will be perfectly submerged with just a little shake there. And we can let this sit for, let's say, 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if yours looked pretty melted coming out of the oven.
It had a nice melted sheen over the top. Just check my oven again. And my oven is right at 170. So, you know, oven temperatures can be a little, oven temperatures from oven to oven can change just a little bit. So that's one of the things that we're going to be working with here is different temperatures, different ovens. Not everybody's is going to be coming out exactly the same. So basically, as long as it's, you know, a little melted, as long as you can see some melted sheen on there, then you should be good. That'll be all right. If you were doing, now this is for a firm ganache is what we're making. If you're going to do a soft or medium ganache, we wouldn't have to warm up the chocolate at all because there's a lot more cream in that. You know, the softer the ganache gets, the more cream you add to it. So since this is a firm ganache, we do need to warm up the chocolate before we add the cream. Otherwise, by the time they, you know, just the thermal mass from the chocolate has been absorbed by the cream, it's not going to be melted anymore. So yeah, that's one of the things that I was kind of referencing before is it will be interesting to see how everybody's temperatures kind of work out, which is what I was saying. We take it nice and slow and everything will work out fine.
And if anything, you're still left with chocolate, right?
That's right. That would not be the worst thing. All right, I am going to start mixing my chocolate. So I can still feel that there's still some chunks in there, which is fine. It should melt. This will still melt all right. If you get done with this and it is still lumpy and there's not going to be enough heat left to melt the rest of it, you got two options. You can either warm it back up. There's no problem with that. So it's warm enough to melt your chocolate. Chocolate melts at right around 90 degrees, which is why it'll just melt in your hand. Or if you have an immersion blender handy, you can just grab your immersion blender and blend it up, assuming that there is still, if it's above 90 degrees, that is. If it's above 90 degrees, then those little bits of chocolate still will melt if you just get them in those smaller pieces. But if you're still left with chunks, that's all right. Warm it up, blend it up, we'll get there. Now the reason I'm using a spatula instead of a whisk is a whisk would introduce air into this, and air will just have, you know, with it that natural bacteria that's just floating around in the air that's harmless and it doesn't matter. But if you've got little air bubbles inside of your chocolates that has that bacteria in it, with the cream and everything in there, it will make it spoil faster. That being said, these will last just sitting exposed to air on your counter for 2 weeks. No problem. I mean, they wouldn't, it would take them that long to spoil. I guarantee they are not going to last 2 weeks sitting on your counter. But they will get eaten much faster than that. But if there is some of that air in there, you won't get that full 2 weeks out of there. That being said, we could just whip a whole lot of air into this, get a whole lot of holes, and it's sure it's still not going to spoil by the time we actually eat this, which is, you know, it won't be long. And if you wanted to make these for a gift or something and you wanted them to last more than 2 weeks, just stick them on a plate, put them in a Ziploc bag, stick them in the freezer. They'll last for you. And when we get to tempering, of course, we're making the ganache now, but later, when we're tempering our chocolate, one thing that I just want to make sure you know ahead of time is you do not want to use wet utensils. A drop of water will cause your tempered chocolate to seize up and just be unworkable. The best thing you can do with it at that point is hit it with a hammer and throw it on ice cream and eat it that way. Otherwise, it's just going in the garbage.
Hey, Jay, what kind of consistency are we looking for right now?
Smooth, no lumps and smooth. And at this point, I do have a few more lumps than I would like to see. I'm just curious what temperature I'm at. Yeah, I'm at 88 degrees here, and I still have some lumps, which is a great start to this class. I'm gonna have to warm this up just a little bit because those lumps are just big enough. I do not see getting those out. So I'm just gonna stick this back in the oven for just a couple of minutes. You can see I'm scraping down the sides because I don't want any of the chocolate to burn. If there's just a little bit up on the side, it'll burn. And nobody wants burnt chocolate. And actually, you know what? I'm not gonna put it in the oven. I'm not. I'm going to stick it. Where's my double boiler? The water's already a bit warm. Oh, that was a fun sound. And this should just take a moment. So how is everybody else doing with their ganache?
94 degrees.
94 degrees, nice.
When you say lumps, how big of lumps are you talking about?
We want it to be perfectly smooth at this point. So if you do have a few lumps, it would be best if you did just warm it up a little bit just to get those lumps out.
Jay, does chocolate from different sources melt differently, act differently?
What's that?
Do chocolates from different sources act differently, melt differently?
If it is like pure chocolate Calais, they should act the same. Now, if it was something like chocolate chips that you just got from the store, those have a lot of wax and other ingredients in them just to make them, actually hold their shape better when you put them in like chocolate chip cookies, so they don't just like completely run out. So that's one of the big difference between chocolate chips and Calais is the Calais made for melting and tempering and working with that way, whereas chocolate chips just aren't made for actual.
Yeah. Mine's fine. It's perfect. I mean, they've melted, so just curious. Thanks.
Jay, we have a question in the chat about how much of this will go into the truffles and how much for the ganache.
Half and half. So this is right around 600 grams of total mass we've got right now. And what we're going to be doing once we get to 92 degrees, we'll mix in our vanilla, our alcohol, and our butter. We'll get that mix nice and smooth. And then we're going to split that 300 grams into, we're going to go right into I've got a Pyrex dish. You guys should have like a 13 by 9 or so Pyrex dish and chilled in the fridge. Usually it's the sort of thing, you get the ganache made, just let it sit at room temperature for 3 hours to slowly get to the right temperature. And then you're all ready to scoop then. We don't have that kind of time, so I've sort of adopted, part of the tempering technique into chilling our ganache, where we're just going to pour it into a pre-chilled vessel with some mass to it. We'll stick it in the fridge for just like 2 minutes, and then we're going to take it back out, and then it should just sort of equalize out that temperature, and we should get right about 72 there. If we just put it in the fridge and let it sit there, it's just going to turn solid and completely unworkable. All right. My chocolate is nice and smooth. No lumps. Curious to see what the temperature is now that I had to warm it up a bit. A lot of times I'll even use the thermometer just to actually mix it up. Yeah, I'm right at 93, 94. Where are we? Make up your mind, thermometer. So I'm at 97 here, actually. So what I'm going to do for mine is actually, I'm just going to stick mine in the fridge for like 2 minutes. Again, this is not, strictly speaking, proper chocolate technique, which involves lots of painstaking, slowly waiting. You know, we're going to get things moving. So I'm just going to cheat just a little bit, 2 minutes in the fridge, just kind of bring down the temperature. It should get us there pretty quick.
So Jay, where do we want the temperature to get down to?
92 before we add our butter, vanilla, and alcohol. That's actually one thing that is kind of nice about making chocolates, if you're going to do it at home, is it's not the sort of thing you need to block off a bunch of time to do it all now. I mean, you know, making the ganache just now really only took just a few minutes, and you can just set it aside. You can come back to it tomorrow. And at that point, you can just have your truffles all scooped up and rolled, and then all you have to do is just temper some chocolate and dip it, and you're done. Right now, we're kind of condensing everything down real quick. So we're doing a little bit of cheating, but it's fine. Worst case scenario, we have chocolate. Oh no. If at any point you find yourself saying, I'm not really doing anything, is there something I should be doing? You can actually just take your tartlet shells and you can put your filling into them already, just to get that out of the way and done. You know, I have on there, you know, by filling, in this case, I'm using orange marmalade. I think that's a great combination for this one, with the, you know, for just the ganache and just the orange flavor. We're gonna do some candied ginger, and I like to add, you know, a little bit of saffron too, just because I'm crazy about those flavor combinations. But even just the candied ginger and the chocolate and the orange really goes well together. So I've got a teaspoon that we'll be putting in the bottom of the shells. It will be completely covered. But you know, it's like cheese. You measure that with your heart, right? So if you want just a little bit more in there, that's fine. You don't want it to be so much that when you bite into it, it's going to kind of goop out a little bit. But just keep in mind that for this size, at 1 teaspoon, it is just going to be a perfect thin little layer. If you want just a little more in there, just a mounded teaspoon. But you'll look at it and you'll see. I know Liza just made her own orange marmalade yesterday from her trees, it looked like, and that looked fantastic. I would just, whatever marmalade you're using, I would just mix it up real good first, just so it's a nice smooth consistency. If you've got, you know, usually it's kind of a zest in there. Just, you know, so it's thinner pieces. If you got big chunks, maybe cut it up just a little bit. But yeah, I'm gonna check my ganache. Of course, the sides of the bowl have taken on a bit of the cold, so that's That is good. Help us cool this down to the right temperature, nice and quick. The first time I ever made chocolate, it was so much waiting. It took me a while to kind of get, you know, the oven temp, getting that, how long to warm it up for and everything. You know, just the amount of chocolate that you're working with is going to vary from recipe to recipe. So just getting it locked down for a specific amount of chocolate to work with and everything, it can take a little bit of getting right, but what I've got here for us to work with, everything should work with us pretty quickly, unless you have a brand spanking new kitchen with a big old oven that you're trying to get to work right for you. All right, let's see where we are now here. I'll take it. We'll take that. All right, so looking down here again, I'm gonna start off with our butter.
How much butter was that again?
Come again? What was that?
How much butter was that again?
This was 2 tablespoons, just cut up into basically each tablespoon into 4 bits.
Yep.
One of the fun characteristics of vanilla, actually, besides being delicious, it actually helps make chocolate taste more chocolatey. Don't ask me to explain the science on that. I just know it's delicious. Just get that mixed in a little bit.
So my ganache still needs to cool down a little bit. So.
And that's just fine. You know, if you just want to stick it in the for a minute or two, that's nothing wrong with that. And I guess it also matters too what bowl you're using. You know, if you have like a thin-walled bowl like this, it will cool faster. If it's a glass bowl that, you know, again has more thermal mass, got thicker sides, that is going to hold your heat better, so it will take a little longer. Now at this point with the butter, what I might do just to keep things moving, adding in my cognac now. Oh, it smells so good. Chocolate and butter and cognac. What I can do at this point with the butter, I could come at this with an immersion blender at this point and really get it smooth, just depending on how well this incorporates for me. I am fighting the temperatures a little bit in this kitchen right now. One of the requirements for commercial hoods is that they not only vent out, but they bring in air from outside so it doesn't just suck out all of your conditioned air. And since it is 0 degrees outside, the heater for that, that air intake is definitely struggling a bit to make.
Hey, that's warm.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take 0. I'm fine with 0. As long as there's no wind. You know what? Yeah, just to keep things here, I could sit here and stir for another 5 minutes, and that butter would melt. But I'm just going to hit this with the immersion blender, just to keep things moving.
Over 100 degrees.
It would help if it was plugged in. I hear tell. Now again, not wanting to introduce a lot of air in here, I'm not just going to go straight down. I'm just going to tilt it to the side, kind of give it a little jiggle, and that way get all that air out. And I've got this, I have many different speeds. That's perfect height there. And I've got this all the way down to 1. That is looking nice and creamy. I forgot. But I've got the got the immersion blender going on the table. Shakes up the camera real good. All right. Nice and smooth. Now the next thing that we're going to be doing here is we're going to take our scale and get our baking dish. It's a glass Pyrex or whatever you've got, and put that onto our scale and weigh out 300 grams and get that into the fridge for about 2 minutes. And then we're going to pull that out and just let the temperature equalize, and that should get us to a perfect scoopable temperature. Because I don't want to just jump right into tempering chocolate without having our truffle balls rolled. Because I have done this before where it's like, oh, you know, a lot of times it takes so long to get the temperature down after seeding the chocolate for tempering, and you add in your seeds, and all of a sudden just bam, you're right there at the temperature that you need to be tempering at, and your truffles aren't rolled yet. So now I just make it a point to make sure that they are indeed rolled. Scale is here. All right, I am now going to get my baking dish out of the fridge. So this one is actually an 8 by 11.5, but you know, whatever you have will work, whether it's a 9 by 13, 8 by 11.5. Yeah, so.
I'm still not down to a temperature where I can add the butter. Had it in the fridge.
Using a glass, is it a glass dish you had that in?
No, it's just like yours, stainless steel bowl.
Okay.
So I'm still at like 101.
Okay. Well, put it in the fridge, which is scrape down the sides of the bowl and put it in the fridge for, say, 5 minutes. And that should get you pretty much there. Some of the chocolate on the sides may be a little more firmer, but once you mix it up, everything should equalize out for you. All right, so using the scale, I'm gonna turn it on. And we're at 0, put that on. And then you'll have a 0, or it'll either say 0 or tear. Usually it says tear, but mine says 0. And you hit that. There you go, I can see. And then we'll just go right back to 0. See if I can put a chopstick under that. See if you get there. There, now you can see it. And I'm just going to go 300 grams. As close as you can reasonably get. If you're a little, try not to go over. Oh, see? Try not to go over. If you're a little under, that's fine. Yeah, 294. 298, I'm calling that. That's good. And we can just smooth it out. A little shimmy shake. And we've got a pretty good even coating there. I'm going to put this in the fridge for 2 minutes. All right, so we've got the rest of this chocolate now. Shut off your scale. And then, so if you have a piping bag, that will work fine, but I'm just pretending that I don't have any of that stuff. So, you know, if you have a Ziploc bag, you can just use a Ziploc bag, fold over the top, fingers in it, and just flip it over. And then you can just set it into a bowl. And then this is what we're going to use as an easy piping bag to just fill our tartlet shells when we are ready for that. You could scoop them, you could spoon them, but I just find a quick piping in to be way easier, much faster, cleaner, prettier. So that's what we are doing. And since it's nothing real, there's no real delicate work about this one, it's plenty easy just to use a Ziploc. I've tried using Ziploc bags for piping other firmer things, cheese spreads and stuff like that on sandwiches, and usually a Ziploc bag just does not have the structural integrity to hold up. It'll just split out the bottom. But for this, it's going to be soft enough that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I'm just going to kind of give it a little pat, smooth it out a little bit. We'll want this to, I usually say about, you know, the bottom third or so, you can fill that up, because we will want this to cool down a bit, but it doesn't need to be as cool as our ganache, or as our firm ganache for scooping. So you can just set this to the side. And now I am just going to grab the ganache out of the fridge and see how that's looking. All right, let's see, what do I want to poke at it with? Oh, there we go. There it is. So we can see, yeah, why not look down here? So you can see it's still a little runny on top, but it's firmed up on the bottom. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna let this sit for a couple more minutes, and the temperature between so right now we have it, so some of it is a little too soft and some of it is a little too firm. We're gonna let it sit, and that should just sort of relax and come out to the perfect temperature. While that is doing that, I am gonna take this opportunity to fill my tartlet shells. Again, I've already taken my my marmalade and just given it a mix up so it's nice and fluid, easy to scoop.
Hey, while you're doing that, what are other things that you could fill these tarts up with? Like what are some of your other favorites?
I mean, anything that goes like, I like to usually put something in the bottom as just additional flavors, but you know, cherry, raspberry, strawberry. You can make your own, compotes and different sort of things like that you can put in there. But for as good as a lot of these are, just using a nice, your favorite jelly, something like that in there, just really makes it very easy to put in there. You can definitely do caramel. Actually, somebody here today had a great idea to make kind of a Reese's peanut butter cup and add sort of a sweetened peanut butter into the bottom, which I hadn't considered before. It got me looking online, and there's a lot of different ways of doing that, just as far as either, some people crush up graham crackers and mix in some confectioner's sugar and stuff like that. I'm not going to have quite enough here. I absolutely just eyeballed the amount that I put in this cup. But, really, things that you like with chocolate or you think might be fun to play with, absolutely try that. I really like chili and chocolate, and I have some really good crunchy chili fried garlic. And I've started putting that on truffles. I'm doing that today because honestly, it's amazing. Marmalade. Found my marmalade. And then just scooping it in, mix it up. Good to go. Are there any other questions about where we are so far, where you are, random, anything? Floor is yours.
Gee, there's a question in the chat about that says if we procrastinated and didn't make our shells yet, is there a way to keep the ganache for a few hours before we pipe it?
Absolutely. Just leave it out. Just leave it. There's really, all right, I'm good with these. That's one of the great things about working with the ganache specifically, with this firm ganache, is, kind of what you're supposed to do is just leave it sit for an hour or 3 until it's ready. If you've got it in the, in a Ziploc bag, whatever your piping bag, if it is, if it does get too chilled and it's too firm for you to really work with piping, again, the chocolate, melts at 90 degrees. Your hands are 98. You can just kind of work it with your hands a little bit, soften it up, and you're ready to go again with the piping. You may want to, let your hands and whatnot warm it up sufficiently throughout so you don't get lumps. But at the same time, even just setting it on top of your refrigerator, which is, generally it's not hot, but it's a warmer spot. You can put it there and it'll stay more of that better temperature. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that and just letting it sit and waiting.
Hey, could you?
The ganache that's in the baking dish, what should that be doing right now? The stuff we're setting aside?
So the stuff that is in the Ziploc bag is what we're piping into here. The stuff that is in the baking dish, we are going to be scooping and rolling for our truffles.
Okay, is it just sitting out right now, or is it back in the fridge?
It's just sitting out. Yeah.
Okay.
The container was in the fridge. We pulled it out. We put chocolate in it. 2 minutes back in the fridge, just so it can kind of chill a little bit, and then right back out. And right now it's just sitting next to me, just sort of relaxing, letting the temperature between what was too warm and what was too cold just sort of evening out.
Okay.
And if it didn't set, Jay, mine is still pretty runny. Like it's not quite that set consistency you were showing. Should it be back in the fridge to kind of cool it back down?
Maybe for
They were talking about both. He said leave it all out, and he's talking about that.
shake it. Is it like still really runny? I'm guessing that's because you have a well fridge full of. It's going to take a minute for for the temperature to get where you need it to. So in that,
Okay.
yeah, probably back in the fridge for another minute or two. And my chocolate, this is great. My chocolate is over solidified at this point. I've done this like 5 times in the last month, and it's worked out perfect every time. Of course, today,
It's actually better when you run into problems during a demonstration because then people know what to do when that happens to them.
right? So I'm just loosening up. I'm just mixing it up.
And it makes us feel better.
Good. That's what I'm here for. The other day, I made just a whole bunch of tarts and truffles. It was just beautifully decorated. I just had them sitting out. I didn't even get pictures of them yet. Just some of the most beautiful ones I had made. Preface the story by saying the puppies were safe in their crate, out of the way. And then Kelly got home. Didn't realize I had all of my tasty treats just setting lower than they should be. And she let the puppies out. And I went from having a whole pile of the most beautiful chocolates to force feeding my dogs hydrogen peroxide in the bathroom so they wouldn't die because they ate every single one of those chocolates. Like 1.5 pounds of chocolate for 2 25-pound healers. So yeah, lots of things can go wrong.
I had a golden retriever, eat an entire rum cake one time.
I had some family friends who their beagle ate like a whole pound of German chocolate that they had brought back. He was fine in the end, but...
Oh yeah.
Dad, remember Abby?
Talking to me?
No, we don't have enough time to get into the Abby stories. This is a legendary dog in our family, my brother's dog.
Oh, great. All right, so now I'm just going by the seat of my pants here. We are going to, I'm going to stick this in the oven for a minute, and we'll see where that gets us.
Hey, should we be checking ours to see if it's too firm?
Might as well. I mean, it's not in the fridge anymore, right? Now it's sitting out at room temperature.
Right.
Right.
But what's too firm or what's too soft?
So basically, you just want to be able to scoop it and have it hold its shape. I'm supposed to be showing you exactly what that looks like right now, but I have a really good fridge. You know, the difference between doing it at home and doing it in a commercial space. So basically, you don't want it to be runny, but you want it to be scoopable. What I basically came out with was solid chocolate. For some reason, this one time, I don't know if the fridge was just in a cool down cycle at that moment, and the glass was just a little colder. But things can go wrong. But you know what? I'm not worried. You shouldn't be worried. You know what we're going to have in the end? Really good chocolate. So I don't want to over melt it. So I'm just going to check, see where we are. We got plenty of time. I'm just going to give it another minute. This is hilarious. So ideally, the chocolate, the ganache would have been immediately a perfect scoopable temperature. So you could take your scooper and it would just run right through it. You kind of push the chocolate into it with your with like a gloved hand, and you would just be able to flip it out with your scooper, and it would just hold its shape and be perfect. That's exactly where we're supposed to be right now, and where we usually are, but we're not there right now. So
The catch-up time is good to have.
what's that?
The catch-up time is good to have.
True, very true. So, of course, you should, just to make sure you're ready for when it comes time to temper the chocolate, you should have a pan of water for your double boiler to warm up your chocolate, just so that water is already warm. You want it to go for around 145 to 155 for the water temperature. You don't want it to be a really heavy steam, otherwise it's way too easy to just get it shooting right past our target temperature. It can be a little more finicky getting it to that exact temperature, but it's going to be a lot better as far as just getting to that temperature slowly and properly. It is very possible to temper chocolate in a microwave just by putting it in the microwave and just giving it 30-second bumps at a time. Just keep mixing it every 30 seconds just to see where you are. I've never actually done it that way. I don't have anything against microwaves. I just don't really use them. So this is just how I don't even have a microwave in this kitchen. This is just, how I'm used to doing it. All right. Now we're looking better. Funny, actually, the motherboard on our microwave at home didn't work for like a year. And I was fine with that because I never used the microwave anyway. But after a year, Kelly's like, so do we just not have a microwave anymore? You said you need to replace the motherboard, so are you going to do that? Which I took as a pretty strong hint that I needed to replace that motherboard because she was sick of not having a microwave. All right. This is lumpier than I would prefer. But you know what? Still going to be really good chocolate. And yours is going to look better than mine. And as I roll it with my hands, just the ambient temperature for my hands is going to warm it up just enough to smooth it out. In case you didn't notice, I'm not worried. A little embarrassed, sure. All right, I'm going to glove up and start scooping. So as far as scooping goes, I think a ½ ounce is a good size for a truffle. It's not so massive. You have to eat it in several bites, but it's not so small that it just sort of disappears. But as far as how many you wind up with, these are 2 different brands of ½ ounce portion scoops. And as you can see, one of them fits like perfectly inside of the other one. So one is clearly bigger than the other. So if you don't come out with, if you wind up with more than 12, I'd be surprised if you came out with less than 12. But if you come out with more than 12, that's fine. I don't see anything wrong with that one bit. But I am going to start scooping and go right into this tray. And so far, I do not have any chocolate on my mouse that I'm using here to switch screens. So you can see here that it's still a little barely fluid. This is just fine. I always have to remind myself that I'm not making meatballs here. Whenever I'm making meatballs, I usually just get, you know, a big old fistful of your mix, and I just sort of scrape off the glove from there. But of course, if you do that with a chocolate, you're just going to wind up with a big old palm full of runny chocolate. So if you don't have, you know, these are just like nitrile gloves. If you don't have any of these, you know, rubber or latex gloves, you know, even just a clean dish glove is fine. It's just handy to not only keep your hands clean, but also until they're a little soft because they don't want to come out of the scooper real well, but it's still working just fine. It just helps not only keep your hands clean, but to just keep the heat from your hand from just immediately melting the chocolate. Get out of there. All right, so what do we have so far? We've got our ganache. We're scooping out our truffles. We've got our tartlet shells with whatever filling you want just across the bottom. I've got the orange marmalade. We've got the chocolate ganache that is going to be a little warmer when we pipe that in. Is just sitting, ready to go. We could put it in right now, but it can be when it's this temperature as it is right now, it can be just a little fluid. It can be kind of hard to control the flow a little bit, which is one of the reasons why we're just kind of letting it sit. If you're in a hurry and you really just wanted to go for it, you could, but we're not really in a hurry, so we're good. Yep, I've already got 12 truffles here. Looks like I might have closer to 15. $14.
It's like a Bob Ross happy accident.
You got it, friendo.
A question in the chat as so the ball should be a little bigger than a quarter. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Something right around there. I mean, it doesn't. The specific size isn't too important. It's just nice when you have several that they're uniform. Another thing that you can actually do if you've ever made French macaroons, where you've got like the silpat and it's got all the circles on there, and you need to pipe your dough on there just perfect into each one. You can actually do the same sort of thing with truffles, where instead of scooping, you just have those little circles, not as big as a macaron, but just to give you that uniform, and you can actually just pipe them into that circle. And if you're good at the piping bag and you're confident with your consistency there, then you can do the same thing. Instead of scooping, you just pipe them. You let them set just a little bit more so that you can roll them. These are just a touch warmer than I want them to be. If I did just try to roll these right now, I would just have smeared chocolate all over my hands. So again, I'm going to cheat, and I'm going into the fridge for just a couple of minutes with these just to speed up getting them there. If this was a professional chocolatier operation, I'm sure some Frenchman would be throwing things at me and yelling because that's not how it's done. But you know what? We're doing it to make it work, and it's going to work. Into the fridge. And really, I think just like 1 minute or so is going to be good for that. Now that it's not all together and they're just those individual balls, they are going to chill much more quickly. So at this point, just out of curiosity, where is everybody at as far as being close to having your balls rolled? Because I don't want to push anybody forward too quickly and just start getting right into the tempering chocolate and have anybody feeling bogged down. So
I kind of rolled them. Mine were cool enough so I could kind of roll them.
sure.
Sydney's are rolled
Or in the balls.
in the balls, yeah.
In the balls, is there anybody that's like, please give me like 5 minutes to just sort of slow down? I mean, I'm gonna 5 minutes.
Yeah.
All right.
Give me 5.
All right, 5 is perfect. This is a good time now. I can pull out my balls. I'm going to roll them into their prettier shape, and then that'll be it.
Great. Let me turn that off.
Yeah, and just that little stint in the fridge was perfect. Like I said, when they're smaller like this, and they're not in a giant mass, it goes real well. So for rolling, I mean, it's very similar to rolling meatballs. When you want them to be that perfect round, you give them a little roll in your hands. Too firm, and you're just gonna smash them, and too light, nothing happens. So you just sort of gauge it, and you'll see exactly what I mean. So I mean, I kind of like to do one hand sort of flat, and then the other hand kind of cup just a little bit, and then you can just go right over the top like that, and then nice pretty little ball, just like that. And flat, the other one kind of cupped over it. And just roll it right around like that. Again, wearing gloves is going to help keep the chocolate from just melting right in your hands and just making a giant chocolate mess all over you. I feel like we need some sort of epic chocolate ball rolling theme song right now.
The bowl scene from Indiana Jones.
Yes, Lucy, I like it.
It's got that drama.
Terry, when I changed the view, did that change it for everyone?
I just spotlighted you again after I had removed you from the spotlight so you could look at the whole grid view if you wanted. But you are spotlighted again.
All right, very good. Yes, I suppose as co-host, when I change that, it changes it for everybody, don't it? I was just, I was changing it so I could look at everybody else for a minute there.
Yeah, it's no problem.
I like seeing all these fine people.
Me too.
All right. Nearly there. So after this, all we have to do is temper our chocolate, dip our truffles with whatever chocolate that we have tempered that is left in the bowl after we've dipped all of our truffles. We're going to use that to make some fun shapes. We can fill our tartlet cups with our ganache, top them off, and put a nice, pretty shape in them. A little bit of chocolate. All right. Set these aside. Don't need this marmalade here anymore. And now the stuff in this bag is firmer than I want it to be because it being so cold, it is like 65 degrees in this kitchen, which is usually not. So, good spot here. I'm just gonna set that there for now. So why not just, not knowing what temperature it is in your house, just check your that bag of ganache. You'll want it to be, you just want it to be solid. If it is, you can just set it somewhere warm, on top of the fridge or something like that. We don't want it to be, it's okay if it's still fairly fluid. We just don't want it to be solid like that one was, which of course being on a cold steel table, it firmed up nice and quick. At home on my wooden counters, that doesn't happen. Oh, it's fun switching between multiple kitchens, doing things the exact same way, but getting completely different results. All right, so are we ready to start tempering chocolate? So at this point, you should have 2 bowls of the exact same semi-sweet chocolate. We've got, if I remember right, 170 grams of our chocolate that we are going to start melting, and then 90 grams of our seeding chocolate, which we're just going to set aside. So our chocolate to melt, we could just put it over the double boiler and just sit there and start stirring. Again, it helps us to put it in the oven and get that whole thing started. It'll just go a little quicker for us. So my thermometer was on the bottom, so it's not registering quite the right temperature, of course. But let's say, I think 7. You know what, I'm gonna check mine at 5. Because the way things have been going here today have not been perfectly smooth. So rather than get it way too melty, way too fast, I'm gonna check mine at 5. 7 minutes, pardon, 7 minutes at 170 should be perfect. But again, I keep a thermometer in there, but it had fallen into the bottom. So it being hotter down there. I don't know what the exact temperature is right now, which I'm gonna play it just a little bit safe. At this point, you can get your double boiler set up as far as warming your water. Again, we don't want it, we don't want bubbles. We don't want it crazy hot, steaming. It'd be a good time to make sure your thermometer is clean and dry. If you're checking for your other chocolate, you want to make sure that this thermometer is clean and dry. You don't want the other chocolate in there at all. You don't want any moisture in there. I know I said it before, but you really don't want to get any moisture. I mean, like 1-2 drops of water into your chocolate, it'll seize up, it'll get lumpy, and you won't be able to do that, what we need to do here. So that being said, I'm just going to actually check the temperature of my water out of sheer curiosity, and then make sure that my thermometer is really, really dry. Any questions of where we are now or where we are going?
Water temperature should be what?
Ideally between 145, 155. That's kind of a low temperature, but it helps control the melting of the chocolate a lot better, because since we're not working with a giant volume of chocolate, it can change temperature very quickly. And if it's, actually boiling or simmering water, in no time, it'll just shoot right past it. This chocolate on the outsides of the bowl are going to be way hotter than the stuff in the middle. And by the time stuff equalizes, you're already going to be way over the temp. So we want to go nice and slow with it. Again, putting it in the oven, that's going to help get us there a little quicker. I actually, when I'm stirring the chocolate while it's over the double boiler, I just like to use the thermometer. It helps you keep a much better grip on exactly what the temperature is. Now, a little trick when we are actually, let's pretend that this is a bowl with our tempered chocolate in it. It's ready to go. I actually like to take a binder clip. This is a large one, but literally any size will do. And take your thermometer and just stick it in there. And you can, if it's a smaller one, you can flip it down and that helps. A bigger one, you can just leave it up like that. But it will hold your thermometer in place so you can constantly monitor exactly what the temperature is. You really want to be dipping your chocolate right around, I don't know, I'd say between 85 and 89 degrees is ideal. Any more than that, it kind of starts to get a little out of temper again. So you'll want to keep your double boiler there handy, just in case you do need to warm it up. The temperature of the chocolate, the ganache balls are going to be lower. So what I actually like to do is just keep the bowl in my hand and just let my hand, which is of course, warmer than that 89 by, a good 11 degrees, letting my hand kind of keep the chocolate warmer while we're going. That being said, usually around 2 to 3 times as I'm dipping, I will just want to set it back on the double boiler for like 20 to 30 seconds. It won't take long. You don't want to set it there and walk away, because if you get too far out of that temper, then you actually have to start all over again if you want it to be perfect. Again, if it's not, it's still going to be really good, and we're still going to have some great chocolates in the end here. So I can tell my water is perfect there. I just got a slight steam on it. A note about dipping. Check my chocolate. And that looks good right there. It's got, again, because my oven is running just a little bit warm, It's got just the ring around the outside of the melted chocolate, and you can see just across the top, it's got just that little bit of melt to it. So I'm just let that. I'm going to start mixing that, but before I really get into it, I just wanted to say, so once we're actually dipping, I like to hold the bowl kind of at a steep angle like this, so that way the chocolate kind of pools up right there, and we can actually use the fork, you know, with the 2 tines to pick up our truffles, and we can put them in, and then give it a few turns. And so with having the bowl tilted, there'll be just more chocolate right here, and then actually just very carefully just wiping off the bottom bit of chocolate that's going to be there a couple of times. Just wipe that off a couple of times, because if you don't, and then you set it down on your parchment, which you can actually just do by just like setting it down and then pulling away, and the bottom of the chocolate the ball should just sort of sit there, and you'll be able to just slide it right out. If you don't wipe it off, then it's going to get this giant footprint on the bottom that, of course, will harden and just be very difficult to, you know, to work with. I mean, you'll have more chocolate on there, which isn't such a bad thing, right? To have more chocolate on there. But if you do want it to be that perfect round sphere, then you want to make sure that you get off that little extra that's going to be dripping off the bottom, and then you can set it down. A lot of times I'll be doing that, and depending on the exact temperature of your chocolate, it'll still be just running just a little bit, and you'll put it on, and you'll just see a big brown chocolate streak coming off of it. And then you'll know, well, if I leave it in this exact spot, it's gonna give it a footprint. So as I'm doing that, if that's happening, you'll see me just kind of like move it a little bit more out of the way, so it's not in that puddle if that happens. Obviously, the runnier, the warmer the chocolate, then the runnier it'll be. All right. So. I like using a chopstick for the initial mix. And I can see right there how fast everything is already melting. I'm going to take it off the heat. I don't want to wait until all the chocolate is melted with it on the heat, because, you know, again, you keep hearing me say thermal mass. All the heat that's already in there will continue to spread without any help from our steam. Now I'm going to grab my thermometer. And at this point, this is where I just like to mix it with the thermometer. I know exactly where it is. And obviously, if it doesn't get me there, then I'm going to put it back over the heat. But the last thing we want to do is just way overshoot that 118 degree mark. If you get to 120, 121, 122, it's not ideal, but it's okay. I mean, you it's okay to get to 120, but it's really hard to get to 120 without overshooting it. Which is why I like to say, you know, I like to shoot for 118, which is totally acceptable. Yeah, see, and I'm still only at like 88 degrees, so I know I've still got some to go. But chocolate is melting, and once we're all melted, it's real easy for it to just jump, you know, 10 degrees on us real quick without us really paying attention. So I'll say it again, take this part nice and slow, go back and forth between on the heat and off the heat. If all of a sudden your chocolate is melting really fast, just get it off the heat. I know I'm still only like 92 degrees, but it's slowly raising 0.1 degree at a time. Very gentle heat. I've done this before where it's like, oh man, this is just high 80s, low 90s, finally getting to the upper 90s. It's just taking forever. And so I like turn up the heat just a little bit. And all of a sudden I'm at 125 and I'm like, oh crap. Already up to 100 here. My autofocus is freaking out, isn't it? Yes. I mean, doesn't that just look luscious? It's just a puddle. And if you got that that Calibre chocolate, that I recommend it. I really like this stuff. It is the second best chocolate in the world. It is the finest chocolate in Belgium. See, I'm already at 115. We're getting there nice and quick. I really like this stuff. The best chocolate in the world can be really hard to get a hold of. So I don't get that one. I'm totally fine with second best chocolate in the world. All right.
What is the best chocolate in the world?
I don't remember. I'm too poor for that stuff. What's the point of knowing something that's just going to make you sad that you can't get it? All right, so I'm already at 118. Got there. See, all of a sudden I wasn't there, and all of a sudden, boom, I got there. So I'm going to put in about, say, 3/4. I'm going to start with 3/4 here. Now I'm seeding it, so our sugar crystals in the chocolate can multiply. And now at this point, we are going for 89 degrees is when we can start dipping. Now, if this gets below there and you've still got chocolate in there, that's fine. You can just warm it up just a little bit. You want to be careful because you don't want it to, shoot way up past into the 90s. See, I'm right here. I already got to 89, and I've still got some lumps, and that's fine. That's not a big deal. That lets me know I'm not going to have to sit around forever and wait for it to temper. Just put it back over the heat for just a moment, and then I can take it off. The heat for just a moment. Take it off. Now we're just letting that heat from the bottom of the bowl spread the rest of the chocolate. And right now I'm at 88 degrees. So I am at that perfect tempering temperature. I'll shut off my oven behind me, and maybe my hood will shut off and leave me alone. Back on the heat for a minute. So again, the temperatures that we're shooting for here are up to 118 and then down to around 85 to 89. I like to start off dipping at 89 just because our ganache balls will lower the temperature a bit.
Hey, Jay.
We'll start with Peter and go from there. Or is that, no, oh, Jason, sorry.
No, Peter had the question, and so do I. It's the same question. Are those truffles supposed to be in the refrigerator, or are they supposed to be sitting on the counter?
Oh no, they're just sitting out right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, once we rolled them, then they just sit out. I only stuck mine in the fridge just for a moment, just because they were just a little bit creamier than I wanted them to be. Was there another question or was that it?
So mine's hovering around 100.
Okay, then just add a few more of those chocolate calais. It'll bring it down quite a bit. So maybe we'll even just start with like 6, just like 6 of those calais, and just see where that gets you. And this part is always the part that can be just so finicky as far as exactly how warm the chocolate is, exactly how much seeding chocolate goes in, the ambient temperature of the room, all have an effect on exactly how long it's going to take to get this exactly right. But I am so close to there. I am at a perfect 89.1 degrees. And I don't see any lumps. Check it out. All right, now I'm just going to put in my binder clip just to hold that in place. I'm gonna set my water to the side here, but not too far away. Get my fork out with a clean spatula. I'm gonna tilt the bowl like that and scrape this down. Now, since this is perfectly tempered now, if you leave some very thin bits around the outside, it will harden. You're going to want to be careful about that. I like to just wipe off, nope, you can see, wipe off my spatula right on the end there, set that aside. What you can do to make sure that you're tempered is you just take a little bit of paper, dip it right on the corner there, and we'll come back to this in about 3 minutes, and we'll see what that looks like. It should be perfect. All right, so got my chocolate here. As I had in your prep sheet, this is just a sheet pan upside down that I have a piece of parchment paper on. You can use just a cutting board with a piece of parchment paper on it. You're going to want the parchment just to help keep it from sticking. But at this point, you can just pick it up, check my temperature again. We're right there at 88. We're good with that. And we put it in and just kind of turn it. Look at that. Let it drain for just a moment. Wipe off the foot. And then set it down and pull. And I'm going to try to do 3 at a time. You might want to start with 2 at a time just to see how it goes. You're also going to want to make sure you've got your toppings handy at this point. Mine are just barely out of reach. So that being said, I'm going to start off doing 2. Wipe off our foot and set down and pull. And of course, I should have a glove on this hand. So I'm already setting up here. So I'm just going to go right into, we'll start off with some toffee bits and some pink sea salts, because I just love that caramel toffee. And then as you go, you get that little bit there. You can just wipe that off, get that right back into your chocolate. If there's any of these like kind of, as you're scraping chocolate back in that's starting to set, you may start to get some lumps in it, and that's fine. That happens. you either try to avoid those lumps. If you see one that's on there, then you just give it a couple more turns until it comes off. But also those lumps will start to cool down your chocolate, and you can just put it back on the heat. Just warm it up just a little bit. Nope, see, as I did that, it gave me a nice footprint, a little foot that was going to stick on there. For this one, I'm going to do some of this chili fried garlic that is just ridiculous and amazing. A 7-year-old asked me, Dad, who puts, like, I gave him one, who puts garlic on chocolate, Dad? And that's sort of like, what is wrong with you kind of thing. In that tone. I'm like, oh, I do. I thought it would be good. Don't you like it? And he's like, no, this is amazing. But I mean, who does that? Crazy people like me. All right, so I'm going to do this one and one more. And then I'm going to put it back on the heat just for a moment. I'm getting a lot of hardened tempered chocolate around the outside of my bowl, and I want to be able to use that still. I don't want it to just firm up on the outside of the bowl and be useless to me. And I see I got just a little spot on the edge there that I don't like, so I'm just going right back in with it. You want to try to be kind of quick with the truffles in there, because if you leave it in there for too long, it will just melt. And you know what, these two, I'm going to leave these two just like that, because I think it's really nice just to have a couple that are real shiny. So I'm just going to put this, let's see how hot this is. Yeah, I'm going to give that just a little bump of the heat. I've got all the room I would want over here. Of course, I'm trying to keep it all under the camera. Now, if I come back to this piece of paper here, you can see it set, you can see that shine, and if you can hear it, not sure if you heard it, but it just gave you that perfect snap. It's a very gratifying sound. You get that shine and then that snap. So it only takes a moment for all that chocolate to just go right back in melted. Make sure you carry around your portable burner with hot water with the burner on. I'm kidding, absolutely do not just carry around a portable burner with the burner on with hot water sitting on top. Don't do as Donnie Don't does. All right, let's check my temperature here. Actually, I'm just barely at 85, so my chocolate melted just like I wanted it to, but not quite exactly where I wanted, so put it back on, little mixa. I'm pretty sure I just accidentally quoted Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. But hey, Baker Acres the man, right? And I'm liking that I'm not seeing any streaks or anything. And these that are already setting up nice. I gotta hit this with the heat again. Now, as I look around, I start to see that everything I touch is getting chocolate on it. So I have the benefit of more gloves. So I'm going to change my glove. All right. There we go. That's all that needed. And at this point, your fork starts to look like that. Very easy, just grab something, clean it off. All right. Back to it. Good temperature, I like that. And yeah, with the cooler temperature in this building right now, I definitely should not be trying to do more than 2 at a time. And for this one, I'm going with the coconut. I do love coconut. Throw a little bit at the sides because I want it everywhere. Love it. And just because I love that candied ginger and saffron combination, it's like my new favorite way of enjoying saffron. I'm going to be putting it on the tartlets anyway.
So do you just crumble a little bit of the saffron on with it, or roll the candied ginger in with the saffron, or?
Actually, I just put the threads.
Yep.
I just put the threads right on there, and it makes it just amazing. And as I was saying that, I was about to put some on the next truffles, but then as I was saying it, I was like, well, I'm getting a little low on saffron, so I'm going to want it for those tartlets. Maybe I should just hold up and not just start going hog wild with it.
Worth trying, though.
Oh, I've definitely got more. I've got more truffles sitting over here next to me that still have more of that saffron and ginger, but man, it was just fantastic.
Never think of putting those flavors together, so.
What's funny is so much of the time when I'm thinking of what flavors to put together, what I usually ends up coming down to is not thinking like, why would these flavors go together, but more of, well, why not? Just because nobody else puts garlic that's been crispy fried in chili oil on chocolate, I think that would be good together. Man, am I glad I gave that a go. It is so good. And I'm just going for this last one. All right, let me set that back over the heat. And this one, you know what, I'm just gonna do, just on these two, I am gonna go with just a little bit of that. Focus there. Just a little bit of that ginger and saffron.
Jay, is that crystallized ginger or is that just powdered ginger?
That's candied or crystallized ginger. Usually what I love using is sweet ginger bits from Penzeys. But I just used all the rest of that on some truffles that I made the other day. So it was this morning, I was like, wait, I have another like big bag of those, don't I? But of course, this day of the world, I haven't been to Penzeys nearly as much as I always am. Okay, so the truffles are done. I've got, let's see, okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do here, I'm just trying to see how much chocolate I've got on the table and how much I want to clean that up. I have one tiny bit of coconut that's in there that I'm just going to set right here. So that tempered chocolate is just going to set on that one tiny piece of coconut, and I'm going to eat that. So now, switch back down here again. Now we can just, again, give this just another little warm up, because now what we're going to do is we are going to switch over to our piped chocolate. So any of this chocolate here, as much as I can, I'm going to try to get this back in. We want to use that. It's okay if you don't have a lot of chocolate left in there, because you're really not going to need very much. These shapes are not going to take up much chocolate. Now, before I start doing this, you should know I am not an artist. I do not have a keen drawer's hand. Making the shapes is what I am least comfortable with. But what I have learned is I can still make some very beautiful shapes. I just need to just move quickly. So not only for just making clean lines with the chocolate, but just as the chocolate running out as it comes out of the piping bag, it is very helpful to just move quickly as the chocolate will allow you, really. So we're going to just get our chocolate right back to a good temperature here. And I went just a little high, so I'm actually just going to throw in just a couple of these, a couple more of the Calais. And I've got a piping bag ready to go here somewhere. Oh, there we go. It's really handy when it comes time to put the chocolate into your piping bag. Here's one of these I gave you. You do not have the tip cut off yet. It is still completely intact. Flip over the edges, just like we did before. And just putting it in a pint glass really helps just hold that perfect right where we want it. All right, I'm going to set, let's see, what do I want to keep here? I'm going to want to keep my ginger near me. I'm going to want to keep the saffron. And you know what? We'll keep some of this coconut and pistachio around too, because I think I want to use some of that. I'm gonna move my other toppings out of the way, give me some room. So for those of you that requested a piping bag, you notice I gave you 2 because it has happened before where I've accidentally cut too much off of the tip and it was just not, the hole was too big and you could not use that. So in case that happens, I've given you 2 piping bags and you can just use the other one. You could just take that piping bag, not even empty it out, and just put it right into that other one. And that will work just fine. All right, at this point, I'm just gonna go right into the piping bag. And here is, I've got, just take a sheet pan, just put some of those shapes down there if you wanted to draw or even freehand some other shapes in there. These here are just some samples of what you can do. I usually just do a couple and then just start kind of screwing around because why not? Okay, so to drive a piping bag, you want to at the top open up like that, squeeze down the chocolate a bit, and then want to start up here. Just give it a little shake. Make sure there's no air down here because you got air bubbles in there as you're piping. They're gonna, and you don't want that. So now you just twist until you can feel it and it's tight. And the way you use this is you don't squeeze from down here. You hold it up at the top and you just very gently squeeze at that biggest part at the top. So where you've got it twisted shut here, you're pinching that shut like right in the webbing between your thumb and your forefinger. So you can like let go of it completely, but you're still holding to it there. And as you go, you can just keep holding it in that one spot the whole time. And as you squeeze and you start to lose chocolate in there, you're squeezing it out and it gets a little, starts to deflate as it were. You can just give it another twist and tighten it back up. And then you can still just do everything right there. So you're really just like squeezing with these 2 fingers. You're holding up here, you're just squeezing with those 2. And I just keep the pinky out of the way. So scissors are here. Now with the piping bag too, you've got this strip of plastic here. Make sure that is facing straight up. If that's down or on the side, it's really gonna mess with you. I do have, I have piping bags, I have the right tips and everything, but I figure if there's gonna be some of you out there that don't have that, then I'm here with you. I'm doing the same thing as you are. So I've just cut off just the very tip, just that little bit. I always prefer to cut off a little less than I think and just sort of see if that's enough. You can always cut off more. But yeah, that is not enough. Barely anything coming out. Let's take off a tiny bit more. There we go. So, I like these. These are kind of fun to do. The first couple are always going to be just like terrible as you just sort of figure out what to do. What's funny about these is I kind of like the shape, just because you got like a down and up and then like a back and forthy there. And then I realized it's basically the Buffy the Vampire symbol. I'm actually going to turn it an awkward angle for me. So as you can see, my first few are always pretty terrible. this is where it helps to have a steady hand and be more of an artist, which I am not. I like to cook and I like to build things, and I like drawing building plans and schematics, but this more fine artistry stuff does not always work out as well. These hearts are always impossible. But it was great. Stars. Who can't do stars? Gotta love stars. You know what? I think one of the problems I'm having, maybe just a tiny bit bigger. Let's see if it's a tiny bit bigger, where that'll get me. And again, there's plenty of circles here. You got plenty of space. There's plenty of chocolate. That's a little better. I'm not fighting it so much now. Let's give it some more Buffy the Vampire deals. There we go. That's better. They're fun little shapes. I gotta admit, I do like those.
Jay, what are we going to do with these?
These are going to go on top of our chocolate tartlets.
Got it. Thank you.
That's a good bit of information to have. And as it gets to the end there, I've got a little bit here in the end that, since it is a little cooler in here, that smaller bit at the end is starting to firm up on me. So all I did was I just squeezed the end and I just forced that little bit of chocolate that was starting to set up. Just got that right out. And you can see now that I had my fingers on it, now it's coming out a little thicker. All right, you know, I'm happy with what I've got there. I'm gonna try a couple more of these, as I was trying to do before. Those are always fun. All right, I'm gonna set these just to the side. And what you can actually do with some of these other truffles here that I didn't coat, just go real quick, right over the top like that. I've done these before where I go real slow and make these zigzags. I really like the design better when you go real fast over it. And even, you know what, who doesn't like a little bit more chocolate with their pistachio? Oh, and this one here, I was talking, these two just look like salt. That's fleur de sel, that it's French for flower of the sea. And that is like the best salt in the world. It is absolutely amazing. Now, I covered those in chocolate. I made some shapes and stuff. I've still got this. At this point, if you've got, you know, some, I don't know, let's say a little bit of, you know, nuts. Let's just pretend that's a little pile of nuts or something. I mean, you can just cover those up. You got some pretzels. Cover some pretzels in it. Whatever you want there. I'm just going to set this. Actually, what I'm going to do, since I'm not actually going to be doing that, I'm just going to move on to the next thing, since we are at 3 o'clock and we are almost done here. I'm just going to squeeze this out. I'm going to cut my hole a little bigger so it goes faster. And since this is perfectly tempered, whoop, I can use this the next time I'm seeding chocolate for tempering. If something went wrong and it was out of temper, and it bloomed, got too hot or something, I wouldn't want to do that, but I'll just break that up, and I can use that next time as my seeding chocolate. Now let's grab our tartlets cups there. Take our ganache. So for this, we just want to kind of, again, we're going to be using this as a piping bag. It should be, the temperature on this isn't very important. You just want it to be soft enough that it can come out. So nowhere as firm as we were doing for our, for scooping. But, so same thing as before, just holding between thumb and forefinger, give it some twists so we have control. And then at this point, we can cut off the tip. We can cut it off just, I'd say, a ½ inch. So we don't want to cut off any chocolate. We want that. So, I don't know. Let's do like we'll say quarter, 3/8. Cut off a 3/8, and then at that point, whoop, you can just fill them up. I had mine was too firm, as you remember, so then I put it on top of the stove. So now mine is good and runny. Which isn't terrible, it just, you know, makes it a little trickier. And depending on how firm yours is, mine is pretty runny. But if it's a little firmer, then you're just going to want to go right in the middle and then just squeeze. Because if it's too firm, you don't want it to just be kind of a swirl that looks like something the dog left. All right. And now, nope, I need another glove. Sorry. And now we can garnish these. So since I was out, are you kidding me? There was a piece of plastic piping bag tip in that. Well, that's fine, just in that little booger there. I'm just going to put some more ginger. So since I ran out of my Penzeys crystal candied ginger bits, which I really like because they're smaller pieces of ginger, and so you don't need to cut them up. But these were larger pieces, but I just cut them to the size that I wanted them to be.
If ours got too thick, what do you do? If it's already in the plastic bag?
If it's too thin?
Thick.
Or no, too thick?
Yes.
Just put it on top of like the refrigerator or someplace like that that's just a little warm. You don't really at this point there's not really a huge, you know, hurry up and do it sort of thing. There's nothing wrong there. So if you just need to wait a little bit for that just to warm up, that's fine. And just because I'm crazy about this saffron combination, I'm just gonna throw a few threads on there. And there's that. Oh, I had plenty of saffron, and I didn't have to dip into my coconut. All right. And now our shapes are good. So Just gonna, you just peel them right off the parchment paper at this point. And then you can just stick them right into your ganache. And you can see that they have a wonderful shine to them. If I were to break one in half, it would just snap beautifully. Which is exactly what we were going for. And any of these that don't look perfect, you get to eat them. And there we go. And we have here 12 gorgeous little tarts. The tarts, you will want to let that set at room temperature for, depending on the temperature of your house and the temperature of the ganache now, between 6 to 12 hours for perfect, to be set up perfect. Because you want the ganache to be that nice firmness. Nice firmness. You gotta have a good firm ganache. I mean, it's a firm ganache. Anyway, so I mean, just look at those. Not sure if you're seeing what I'm seeing on my screen. This kind of looks terrible, but man, this looks amazing in front of me. And then of course these guys. I mean. Ideally, I would have these out all displayed on a cutting board or something like that, but I mean, those there that got that light chocolate drizzle. But these we don't need to wait for. These are ready. So the question is, which one?
Question is, how many turned out looking like yours?
Well, I'm just going right for one of these garlic chili ones because they're special. Great snap, great shine. Even with my ganache starting off a little lumpy before, it's just perfect interior. I'm going to see the ganache, see that layer of that chocolate around it. And that chili garlic just sets it off. Great mouthfeel with that butter. Remy Martin is just hanging out back there. I really want to dive into those tartlets, but we'll wait for them to set. So, how are you guys doing?
I have kind of a weird question for you, Jay.
Yeah.
So I discovered this giant slab of caramel that we have, so I went ahead and rolled some of that up and dipped it in the chocolate too. But it is like super not hardening, and the chocolate is like really squishy and melty. Do you have any idea why that might be or what we could do about it? It kind of went off the curriculum there.
Sure. So you tempered the chocolate, and like, is it just on the caramel? It's not.
Yeah, just on the caramel. Everything else is fine.
Okay. Was it room temperature, the caramel, when you dipped it?
Yeah, that's probably it.
I mean, there shouldn't be anything wrong with it being room temperature per se. So I'm assuming that there was maybe just some of the butter was starting to leach out of the caramel a little bit. and then that butter just mixed with your tempered chocolate just enough that now it's not pure chocolate, and so it's not setting.
That makes sense.
I mean, it'll solid up if you put it in the fridge, and that'd be a nice snack that way.
That's what I did. I was like, this might help.
If worse comes to worse, we just have a nice chocolate caramel slurry. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
If I could share an experience that I had with the chocolate decorations, I found that if I just swirled around the outsides of the, where's my camera? Over here.
Oh,
if I just swirled around the outsides of it, it ended up with kind of a flowery, circular look, and it was very freeform and easy to do. Yeah.
I had not considered that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And just lots of little circles, so you don't have to be exact or anything of what size they are.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that technique. Very forgiving, and that looks really nice.
Yeah, it looks like you tried really hard to get it to look like that. But in reality, it's just
Oh, great. How'd that marmalade turn out?
Really nice. I think I would change out some of the water for some orange juice because I would like a little bit more orange flavor, but it's really nice. I made jam before, but not marmalade.
Sure.
And not gonna be able to make a dent in our tree with it, unfortunately. Not unless I want to start a jam or marmalade business.
Right?
It used way more sugar than it did oranges.
Ah, yes, I suppose. How'd everybody else turn out?
I don't think our truffles are going to win any awards for beauty, but size, they're certainly substantial.
We did small ones. I mean, we did small truffles and big.
Oh, beautiful.
Whatever these are.
Big truffle.
The bigger pastry bags. Yeah. So I had heart shapes. Well, we'll dump that. Here.
Nice.
We'll do it this way. Now can you see? No. Where's the camera?
There.
There. Sort of.
They're not very round.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can't even see here.
To be good. Nice.
Maybe you're seeing them. Fun. It worked.
It works.
Yeah. I thought these turned out really cute with that little thing in the side. My pastry's a little thick, but.
Oh, that's fine.
My truffles are fine. I'm having to soften the filling for the tarts. It's not working. Our house is too cool.
Yeah, that's the hard part about doing it in the winter is, I mean, you know, the temperature of the ambient temperature of the room just has so much of an effect as far as specific timing.
Right.
What other additional toppings do people use for their truffles? I had bacon on mine.
No.
Bacon.
I like that one. Anybody else have any toppings for their truffles or tartlets?
Toasted coconut. Toasted pecans.
Yeah, I did wafers and peanut butter, toffee, coconuts. I put some marinated cherries inside of 3 of them, and two in the tartlets to see how that turned out with a little more brandy. So a little old fashioned looking like one.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, that's hard getting something right in the middle there. I've done some and they were beautiful and delicious, and oh man, were they finicky.
I've got my cranberry, cardamom, orange reserves in the tartlets, and I'm putting some toasted hazelnuts on top, fresh.
Oh, nice.
And some dried blueberries on some of the very ugly truffles.
I like that. Yeah, blueberry and chocolate definitely need to go together more. I like that a lot.
Dried wild blueberries, so they're little.
Ooh.
I got a little ahead too and started dipping fruit in the chocolate.
Oh, those look perfect.
So oranges.
Hey guys, if you send to me photos of what you've done, I'll post them on Facebook and we can share.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'd love to see what everybody did. Close-up shots. That'd be fantastic. And here's my email. It's just terry@folklorevillage.org.
Saw a lot of beautiful chocolates there. Everything was looking very nice. Looked like everybody did a great job with their temperatures. Oh, those look nice, Lucy.
I like to do 3D stuff with the like chocolate thing, and I found if you do little bee shapes, like the letter B, 2 of them together look like a butterfly.
That's beautiful.
See? Isn't that cute? And they're super easy to do because you write it like you write a letter B. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Very clever.
Every now and then.
I probably for more ideas rather than just like trying to like what can I draw? I don't know. Everything looks terrible. The kids want to draw something. The kids want to color something. They ask Kelly to like draw them a picture of a princess, and I have to like go to the internet. Like I'll print you a coloring page of exactly what you want, but I can't draw at all.
That's fine.
I think CL and I are going to call it because we are both absolutely exhausted and chocolated out. But thank you so much, Jay. This was delightful.
Absolutely. Seeing you, Tova. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Send me your pictures. Thank you for coming. Check out Folklore.
Bye. This was fun.
More fun.
This was lots of fun. Looking forward to the next class, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. That's great.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job, Jay.
Great.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks, Jay.
You did a great job, Jay.
You did. And it really helped having that kind of pre-list of what things to prepare.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm getting it figured out.
Honestly, I have to say I've taken a few of the classes with Sir Latab that are professionally run, and this is always way better, much better organized. So you're on a good track.
I have a lot of experience organizing very complicated and nuanced things. So this is definitely complicated and nuanced, especially working with all of you and not just like, hey, watch me do a thing, but I'm glad you're enjoying it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jay. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
We'll see ya.
All right, bye-bye.